The giant stuff is weird. 10, 15-foot tall humans. And then there's also the Nephilim in the Bible. David and Goliath. There's giants in the Bible. And it makes you think, like, okay, is it a giant like the mountain from the Game of Thrones?
Well, if there is Antichrist on his way, so his goal at this point is just to destroy as much as possible. Finding stuff like that would prove the Bible more true would turn more people to Christianity or to God, the one true God. Anything that's going to prove God's existence, I think that's going to be the main thing they shut down.
Right. Like the Shroud of Turin. I've been into the Book of Enoch over the last couple of months.
I was wanting to pull that up. I was wanting to talk about that.
So
Joe Rogan talks about the Nephilim and giants and the cover-up and the implications that would happen if they found out the truth about the Nephilim and giants. This is so fascinating. I love that Joe Rogan is having this conversation. Let's get right into it. Here we go.
I got off on a giant kick one time reading about giant. And it's like anytime the Smithsonian got involved, it was just shut down.
Yeah.
You know?
The giant stuff is weird because there's a lot of documentation of people finding giants, like enormous
giant bones,
10, 15-foot tall humans. And then there's also the Nephilim in the Bible that are giants that consumed everything. You know, that were, I mean, David and Goliath. There's giants in the Bible. And it makes you think, like, okay, is it a giant like the mountain from the Game of Thrones? You know,
just
like
a big guy.
Yeah, maybe.
Because people were shorter and relatively back then.
Right, but probably some people weren't if they lived in some places where they had more resources and better genes. Yeah.
Pituitary gland problems, you know, where we have guys 7'11" plus, you know.
Yep, but this seems different. The giants in the Bible and the giants in historical accounts, it seems different. It seems like it's a totally different species of human. And again, if we just found this guy recently that's 1 million years old, and now we know. So forever they were saying that human beings, I mean, the timeline used to be Homo sapiens emerged 50,000 years ago, and then they moved it to 150, then they moved it to 250, 300, as they find more information. Now they have to push it to 1 million. You know, and if one day they find a fucking head as big as this table, like, what do they do? What do they do about that? Do they even tell us?
I don't think they would.
I don't think they would.
But why?
And I love that he's like, yeah, these giants seem like they're not even human or part of this different species. Well, the Bible says that the sons of God came down and had intercourse with the daughters of men, and that's the offspring of the Nephilim. That's what came from them, is the Nephilim. Of course, that's going to be different. And when you see this king of Bashan named Og talking about having a 13-foot bed, what does that mean? That means that there are some giant people.
That's what's weird. Like, why wouldn't they? Isn't that crazy? But we all agree. We all agree that if they did find a giant, they probably wouldn't tell us.
Yeah.
Like,
not until they did their own, you know, figured it out for themselves or tested on what they want.
I don't know if they want people to know, but I don't know why they wouldn't want people to know. Like, why am I convinced that they would hide that?
Well, if there is Antichrist on his way, and his goal, he already knows he lost. So his goal at this point is just to destroy as much as possible, you know, get as many souls as possible. And finding stuff like that would prove the Bible more true would turn more people to Christianity or to God, the one true God. Then I could see where if there is like some type of spiritual force that is in somewhat control, then I could see that's the only way I can make sense of it. Is like, why cover up progress? Why not tell people the truth? Because
I think it's...
That's fascinating that he's like, well, maybe because they're covering up for the Antichrist. I'm not for sure who Red Clay is. Red Clay strays. I would love to know if you guys know, but this is crazy.
And that might be also related to good and evil in a lot of ways.
Loving yourself and you're supposed to love God over yourself.
Right. And being the person that has the knowledge and the person that distributes that knowledge and is the gatekeeper of it is a very intoxicating thing for a lot of these academics. And if all of a sudden something comes along that, and this is the speculation about what happened with the Smithsonian, that they took that stuff and just tucked it away.
I would think they
femur bones.
They would want to have, you know, secretly do their own test without anybody knowing about it.
I know,
once
but to what end? At one point in time,
before everybody else knows, they would already have the answers. I don't know.
But wouldn't there be a time where someone would want to like be the guy who discovered it all and get all the credit for it? Like, that's why it doesn't make sense.
To me, if somebody knows God, it is freeing in a lot of way, and you realize that, you know, no government is above you, or no man is above you. God is above you, and you serve God. And if you can keep people away from God, you're that much more susceptible to being a slave to something else and worshiping something else.
Whatever evidence or anything that kind of proves that God exists.
Yeah, anything that's going to prove God's existence,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the main thing they shut down.
Right. Like the Shroud of Turin is an excellent example.
Yeah,
that one's an interesting.
wild.
That's good. I love how they're putting this, I love this conversation because they are pointing out something that is fundamentally, constantly being hidden from people because of the truth. They don't want the truth to be known because it causes people to not believe in their agenda, which is keeping people away from God. That's wild. That's a good point. And I love that Joe Rogan is hearing this.
That's a weird one, man. That's a weird one. There's a lot of people that go out of their way to try to disprove it. But when you get into the dating of the cloth, so it used to be they were saying that it was only a few hundred years old, but now they're saying that the way the cloth is made, the cloth is made that's exactly consistent with the time that Jesus was alive, and that more tests need to be done to find out the exact age of it. Because the problem is, like, you don't know, like, what piece they studied, and you're not studying the entire thing. And also the image of it is bizarre because the image of it, you really only see Jesus when it's a negative of it. Mm-hmm. And they don't know how that image was put on there. It wasn't stained. It wasn't burned on there. They don't know what caused it.
It's like a blast of radiation.
Yes,
right.
Somebody recreated it with gamma radiation, I think. But the only problem, so it would just be it would need to be an extreme source of light to do that. But the only problem is that would have vaporized, the heat from the light would have vaporized it realistically. So they're wondering, well, if light did do it, how was there no heat?
Right.
So if Christ did raise and pass through it, there's also X-ray images in the shroud apparently.
Well, you see this when you see the shroud in negative. Like, Jamie, pull up an image of it. It's very strange. Like, it shows the lash marks on his body. Yeah. It shows his facial features. It shows the holes where his wrist is, where he was crucified. It's very strange stuff. Because, like, for someone to do that as a hoax and to just not paint it, to do it in some very weird. Go to that. Yeah, that one right where your cursors are so over that. Make that big.
Recently said it's fake.
They've recently said it's fake?
They go back and forth on it.
The thing is, like, who is the person who's they? Right.
It's every time someone says, "Oh, I just did this 3D image. It's impossible. It would have to be one of those flat images for it to have that type of painting on." Well, they're not taking it into consideration how the markings got there in the first place. That doesn't debunk how the markings got there. The markings got there from some crazy radiation of light. No one painted it, no one drawed it. It wasn't just sitting there. That doesn't account for the blood samples on the shroud. How did the blood samples get there if it was a medieval statue? That's another thing. So there's no debunking here.
Catholic Church is who
What's
owns
that, Jamie?
it.
Says they've been debunking it for 650 years.
Well, but 650 years ago, they didn't even have carbon dating. So what were they doing to debunk it back then? Yeah. There's a bunch of people that want to debunk it.
There's a document
so what does it say?
Found.
A document?
Well, they were talking about, I mean, I don't know.
Well, they talked about it being bullshit?
Yeah, I've
the
also
thing is,
seen
people,
videos.
I'm sure, called bullshit on it a long time ago.
People have talked about ways that some of that stuff could have been done.
Sure, but how would someone figure out that 500, 1,000, 2,000 years ago, whatever it is?
It could have been 300, 200, 150,
sure.
60 years ago.
Well, it's 650 years. If they've been debunking it for 650 years, you got to assume it's at least 650 years old. Well, so the thing is, like, see, it's been dated between 1355 and 1382.
The text was the document.
The text. What text?
That we're talking about here, not the shroud.
What is the text about? Medieval document has revealed that the authenticity of the shroud that many believe wrapped and crucified was being called into question perhaps as early as 1355. Okay, well, that means that it existed 1355.
Yeah.
Depictions by clergymen. See, it's hard. Deceptions. Oh, excuse me. Deceptions by clergymen. His writings, now considered the oldest written rejection of the relic, predate the previous earliest documented criticism by the Bishop of Troyes, Pierre d'Arcis, in 1389. So either way, we know it's at least 600 plus years old, and we know that the way that it was put on there was not stained, it was not painted. It's very strange. And if you look at it like that, they didn't even know that until they came up with photography, until they could take an image of it and make it a negative. They didn't see the face of Jesus and all the depictions.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this image right here is like, you look at that, the Shroud of Turin, like, yeah, I could say call bullshit, whatever. But then you see the negative. I go back to those other images. So this is what it looks like when you run it through, when you use modern photography and turn it into a negative. That's really weird.
Yeah.
That this wasn't, that they didn't know about this in the 1300s.
Yeah.
A new study says it's something else. So they're going to have studies forever that debunk it.
It's the most widely studied artifact in history, but there's still so many things that they can't explain. It was not made by human hands. It was not made by anything that you could think of. Guys, they literally said they would pay millions of dollars if you could replicate this, and no one actually ever have. It's impossible to replicate that without it being on a real body. They have pollen from the place that Jesus from Jerusalem. They have pollen that exactly is identified as the same thing that they would have had in the early 1st century. They have blood on the Shroud of Turin.
Thing that academics love to do. They love to call everybody retarded.
Yep.
Everybody's an idiot. This is all fake. This is bullshit. But whatever that is, man, when you're, just go back to the negative ones. The one that you just had. The one down, right? Yeah, that one, please. That's weird as fuck to me, man. That's weird as fuck that you couldn't see it normally, and you only see it when they make a negative of it. That is so strange that someone would go out of their way to fake something in that way, where it only exists in a negative.
Well, and they don't even know how it happened.
Right, exactly. They don't know how to. I mean, they're saying they could reproduce it today, but I don't think anybody has. And also, how are you going to reproduce it to such an extent with so much detail that matches the biblical depiction of the crucifixion?
Yeah.
Including the holes in the wrist, the lash marks on his back,
the blood,
the wound in his side. It's all really weird. At the very least, it's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
The very least, it's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really interesting stuff.
To me, that seeing that, I really don't even care how old people think it is, or like, figure out how they did that first. To me, it's like, if this is,
not only that, how'd they do that 600 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, or whatever age it actually is?
I seen one article last year where they found dirt particles that matched, that trace back to Jerusalem. So it's, like I say, they've been debunking it and saying it's authentic and debunking it. It seems like for the last 5 or 10 years now.
Oh, it's very weird stuff.
It's just, where are we at right now with it?
That one church in Ethiopia that's supposed to have the Ark of the Covenant there.
Yeah.
And all the people that guard it, they all get cataracts and they wind up dying of radiation.
I haven't heard that one.
See,
you ever heard of that?
I don't know about that, because the Ark of the Covenant was when God the Father's presence was here on earth, not through Jesus. Old Testament, the I Am was down here, and that's what he resided in. And you had to do all these things to be in his presence, or you would literally just die, because he's holy. And to me, it's like lightness and dark cannot exist in the same place. So whatever, but God the Father's presence isn't there anymore. So I don't understand why it would still be messing people up.
Well, we don't know what they were writing down, right?
Yeah.
The problem with all ancient religious texts, let's assuming there was real events.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is a lot of these things were told as an oral tradition for 100, 500, 1,000 years before they're ever even written down. And then they write them down. They write them down in Aramaic. They write them down in Hebrew. They write them, and then they have to translate it. And they translate it to Greek and Latin, and then eventually.
Oh my! Now he's still using the same exact arguments that he's used for the longest time of history. But that doesn't matter. The Ark of the Covenant, like what this guy was saying, is that whatever it is, it's not God anymore. Just completely causing people to have these cataract problems. But who knows? Maybe there's something still going on with that symbol. But I don't know what happened to the Ark of the Covenant. I'm going to look this up. The Ark of the Covenant is last mentioned in 2 Chronicles 35:3, when King Josiah instructs the Levites to return it to the temple in Jerusalem. After this point, the ark is not mentioned in the Bible, leading to mystery surrounding its disappearance before the Babylon conquest. However, the ark is alluded in the New Testament with Revelation 11:19 indicating a sighting of the ark in God's heavenly temple, suggesting it may be heavenly counterpart to the earthly artifact.
English, you're missing a lot along the way. When I read these things, when I read the Bible, or if I read the Book of Enoch or any of these ancient texts, I'm always trying to say, okay, what were they trying to document?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was the original event? Like, what actually happened? And the problem is people are really bad at telling the truth. Like, human beings, when they see something fantastic, they always add their own little flavor to it. People add their own little thing to it. If they are of a certain belief, they're going to attach that belief to whatever this thing was. So it's no question that these people held whatever that was in such high regard, and it meant so much to them that they, like the book of Isaiah, where it's verbatim, that they wrote it verbatim for 1,000 years. Back when they started out, they were writing things down on animal skins. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things about the Dead Sea Scrolls that's so fascinating, is they had to do genetic testing. So they're writing these things down on these animal skins, and they had to make sure that the skin of this one is the same cow as the skin of this one. So if they do like genetic testing to make sure it's the same cow skin. So, okay, we got all the skin from this cow, and it's in this group of text, so start decoding it.
That's an interesting way of doing it. That's wild.
Yeah. It's wild.
I would have never thought of that.
And like Wes Huff said, how they used to write things, like they'd leave stuff out back then because it wasn't required back then. They would just write down the basics. I watched that Wes Huff thing, and that was very interesting.
Well, I love that Wes Huff has really, really made a massive difference in the culture, and people were just completely blown away on this stuff. What he's talking about, he referenced 1,000 years of Isaiah being still pretty much word for word the same and preserved for 1,000 years, and it still blows Joe Rogan away every time. That's what I love about it.
He's brilliant, man.
Yeah.
I've watched a bunch of stuff on him.
Very brilliant. But it's again, what were they trying to document?
Yeah.
There's clearly something was going on back then. Something happened.
Did you ever read that story? It was somewhere in the Bible. I can't remember where. It's in the Old Testament. Somebody stole the ark. Well, some tribe stole the ark. And like the next day, the next morning, like everybody was dead from stealing the ark, and they pretty much said, "Hey, come get this thing, take it back."
Yeah, we don't want it. We're good.
Well, that's what people believe is in this church in Ethiopia.
Yeah,
because there's these Ethiopian Jews who also their Bible is the Book of Enoch.
Yeah.
Do we have an image of this ark?
No, you can't see it. Nobody can get. I say send in the SEALs.
SEAL Team 6.
Find out what is in there, bro. Put these guys in hazmat suits and let's get to the bottom of this.
If the U.S. knows you got it, it's going to be ours.
Well, you would imagine.
We're going to take it.
I would like to
might
see
not know at all.
Well, what would happen with remote viewers if remote viewing is real? Get remote viewers in a room, and
we have talked about.
I've been into the Book of Enoch over the last couple of months.
Yeah, I was wanting to pull that up. I was wanting to talk about that.
So Rep Lima came in here, and she was explaining to me the Book of Enoch, and I never really got into it. She's like, it could have been included in the Bible, and it was a part of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but
the first half was, right?
The Book of Enoch is in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
The whole book?
Yeah,
oh.
And the at least part. It's the problem with the Book of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Rather, it's a lot of it is deteriorated and it's missing chunks and stuff. But
yeah.
The Book of Isaiah is in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it is identical word for word. Wes Huff was explaining that to a version of it that was 1,000 years older, which was the most recent version before they found the Dead Sea Scrolls in the 1940s, which is wild.
That is wild.
That's the book that God predicts his own coming to earth and his own death and all that.
Well, the Book of Enoch is the one that predicts that this is what talks about the Watchers in the sky, and that these gods mate with humans and created the Nephilim.
Yep.
That is bizarre.
Well,
I've listened to it twice now, and I keep going back over it and just rewinding and going, what are they saying? Like, what were they trying to describe? Because this sounds completely insane.
When you get into like because isn't there like Egyptian stuff where there's like men coming down from space and like
stargates? There's all sorts of weird shit.
That to me is just like fallen angels. You know, it's all kind of lining up in some kind of way or another.
That's amazing.
Whatever rebelled against God and came down here, men from the sky came down here and were pretty much posing as gods and demanding people worship them. And isn't Enoch where they teach them about money and teach them about
sorcery
and
sorcery and agriculture and metallurgy? There's all sorts of like weird. They talk about incantations. And then, like, how to get out of incantations if one gets put on you. It's like,
and you got to think this is pre-Jesus, and so God is separated from man. So we're just walking around as people, like not knowing what's going on. And these things come down, and they're boring giants and stuff. It's like, you know, I'd probably think it's a god too, for God's sakes, you know, because there wasn't. What was the Jews even a thing when the Book of Enoch was written?
Sure, yeah, it was.
I mean, people think that the Book of Enoch was written in the oldest fragments of the Book of Enoch that we have. I mean, maybe it could have been written earlier, but we have no evidence for it, that it was written 300 BC. That's the fragments we have from the Dead Sea Scrolls. But does that mean that it's legitimate? Because Enoch himself, according to the scriptures, was way before that. But it makes you wonder. It kind of sheds light onto some of these unknown things.
God's chosen people?
The people that argued over whether or not the Book of Enoch should be included in the canon were rabbis.
Yeah.
It's all so confusing.
Is there any explanation of why it would be left out?
Well, they felt like it didn't jive with the Torah. I think that's the reason why it was left out.
Well, I mean, when I say that, like at one point, the Jews were God's chosen people. Is like they knew the God, the one, the I am, the one true God, but the rest of the world didn't really know what was going on, and so they were worshiping other gods, and so, like, aside from the Jews, the rest of humanity seeing these things walking around, it's like I'm sure they would think that's a God. You know, I'm sure they would worship that. What else do they have to believe?
Well, if something did come and visit ancient humans, I'm in the middle of this Richard Dolan book, and it's a very interesting book on UFOs. And Richard Dolan, who's a very objective, scientifically minded author, one of the things he's talking about is his gene expression. It's a D allele that started this gene. It was introduced through breeding. So one of the things that we know is that it came into the human population somewhere around 40,000 years ago. And that all geneticists agree that this was introduced through crossbreeding. So the idea was it introduced by Neanderthals? Was it introduced by Denisovans? Like what type of human? Well, the problem is they don't find that gene expression in any other ancient human. Like they don't find it in Neanderthals. They don't find it. But they do find it in Asia, like in Mongolia. Most people have it. The rest of the world, it's like 70% of the people have it, and they think it's responsible for creativity. They think it's responsible for this giant change in the artwork that people start producing around 40,000 years ago. And his assertion or his question, the hypothesis, is that it was introduced by some other species. And this is also part of what is talked about not just in the Book of Enoch, but also in the Sumerian text. They talk about what happened that created human beings. And
yeah, wow. That's interesting. I love that Joe Rogan is talking about it, and I think the answers are in the Bible 100%. And I think that is the most important thing is all these other beings, these things are trying to take you away from God, take you away from having a relationship with Jesus, because they are a counterfeit again. They are not the one true God. They are not Jesus in the flesh, and they're trying to take you away from knowing the truth. So I really hope and pray that he comes to know Jesus and puts his faith and trust in Jesus and Jesus alone, because Jesus is the one who can save you from your sins. Jesus is the one who can set you free. So I encourage you to go to Jesus today. And everyone else watching, go to Jesus. Have an amazing day. I would love to know what you guys think in the comments below.